Yeah, I think it's funny when we start to think about ministries and things like that. We're so used to thinking about a couple of things. We think about the when and the how, but I think we also think about where in physical ministry. And when we think about where, we have to start thinking about price. And then price always comes to like, how much is it going to rent a space? What am I going to have to, how many man hours is it going to take to run this whole thing? And then we have to think about, utilities and power and internet and water and insurance and parking and furniture and all of that other stuff. But I think one of the coolest things about digital ministry is that your space can be as simple as a laptop or a smartphone or something with an internet connection. I think it's honestly one of the best things about digital ministry is that we're no longer confined to a physical building. We have virtual platforms, we have streaming channels, we have social media profiles, we have a set of digital tools that can help us connect with people around the world, and that drastically reduces overhead. You don't need to have a large building, or you don't need to have a professional film studio to get started. You can go in a quiet corner of your house, get a ring light, some decent lighting, and a reliable, mic. Even it doesn't have to be a super expensive mic like this one. You can have like a cheap $30 microphone that you got off of Amazon, and that can be the place that you start your digital ministry. It's not free. I think a lot of people, they get it confused with like, oh, it's low cost and it's free. It's not free. There are some costs associated with digital missions work, and I think it kind of depends on your goals. You've got hardware, you've got software, and you've got presence. Hardware, like I said, a laptop or a desktop, a webcam, and a microphone. You can spend anywhere from $50 to $1,500 or $5,000 if you want to start from scratch. But if you already own even like a smartphone with a good camera, you might not even really need to spend that much. There's a lot of successful digital ministries that honestly just begin with a phone or an iPad or a tablet and an internet connection, and they go. So that's hardware. But then you got to think about software. Much of what we can do is, free or inexpensive. We've got platforms like Zoom and Discord and WhatsApp and Facebook. They don't charge us to host basic meetings or streams. And then we've got video editing tools like Resolve, or if you've got a Mac, you've got iMovie, and then you can get Final Cut kind of built in. Those are free. But if you want some of the more advanced streaming features, we've got paid tools like Ecamm or StreamYard or Riverside or Restream. Some of those things they're like 20 or 30 bucks a month. And 20 or 30 bucks, you might go, oh, that's like $200 or $300 a year, but that's like a fraction of what traditional ministry spaces require. It's like just the merest of fractions. So that's hardware and software, but then you got to think about presence. You got to think about who you are and where you're setting up ministry. And so, you could set up a ministry on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and that costs you nothing up front. You can create an account and you can start sharing, and then you can build a website, and that can be done for like a few dollars a month. If you want basic hosting, you can do DIY stuff on WordPress or Wix or Squarespace or anything like that. And you can then use social media platforms for free, and you can then choose when you want to invest advertising dollars. If you want to increase your reach, you can be $50, $100, $500 a month, whatever you want to be, depending on your budget or your strategy. Even with all three of those, I think the barrier to entry is incredibly low compared to what ministry leaders faced just a decade ago. Your cost is going to be the hours you spend creating meaningful content. I think at the end of the day, the question is, how much does it cost for you to have a space in your digital ministry? And that's going to depend on your vision and on your goals. What matters most isn't how you spend the money, but how faithfully and lovingly and effectively you're using the resources you have to share the gospel and build community online.